scuttleput's just easy to hand. "The cowboy's going under before long," said my friend. "Soon as the country's settled up he'll have to go. But he's mighty useful now. What would we do without the cowboy?" "As how?" said I, and the camp laughed. "He has the money, we have the skill. He comes in winter to play poker at the military posts. We play poker, a few. When he's lost his money, we make him drunk and let him go. Sometimes we get the wrong man." And he told me a tale of an innocent cowboy who turned up cleaned out at an army post and played poker for 36 hours. But it was the post that was cleaned out when that long-haired Caucasian removed himself, heavy with everybody's pay and declining the proffered liquor. "No," said the historian, "I don't play with no cowboy unless he's a little bit drunk first." Ere I departed, I gathered from more than one man the significant fact that up to 100 yards he felt absolutely secure behind his revolver. "In England, I understand," quoth the limber youth from the south, "in England a man isn't allowed to play with no firearms. He's got to be taught all that when he enlists. I didn't want much teaching how to shoot straight 'fore I served Uncle Sam, and that's just where it is. But you was talking about your horse guards now." I explained briefly some peculiarities of equipment connected with our crackest crack cavalry. I grieve to say the camp roared. "Take 'em over swampy ground. Let 'em run around a bit and work the starch out of 'em, and then, almighty, if we wouldn't plug 'em at ease. I'd eat their horses." There was a maiden, a very little maiden, who had just stepped out of one of James's novels. She owned a delightful mother and an equally delightful father, a heavy-eyed, slow-voiced man of finance. The parents thought that their daughter wanted change. She lived in New Hampshire. Accordingly, she had dragged them up to Alaska, to the Yosemite Valley, and was now returning leisurely via the Yellowstone, just in time for the tail end of the summer season at Saratoga. We had met once or twice before in the park, and I had been amazed and amused at her critical commendation of the wonders that she saw. From that very resolute little mouth I received a lecture on American literature, the nature and inwardness of Washington society, the precise value of Cable's works as compared with his uncle Remus Harris, and a few other things that had nothing whatever to do with geysers, but were altogether pleasant. Now, an English maiden who had stumbled on a dust-grimed, lime-washed, sun-peeled, collarless wanderer, come from and going to goodness knows where, would, her mother inciting her and her father brandishing an umbrella, have regarded him as a dissolute adventurer, a person to be disregarded. Not so those delightful people from New Hampshire. They were good enough to treat him, it sounds almost incredible, as a human being, possibly respectable, probably not in immediate need of financial assistance. Papa talked pleasantly and to the point. The little maiden strove valiantly with the accent of her birth and that of her rearing, and Mamma smiled benignly in the background. Balance this with the story of a young English idiot I met mooning about inside his high collar, attended by a valet. He condescended to tell me that you can't be too careful who you talk to in these parts, and stalked on, fearing, I suppose, every minute for his social chastity. That man was a barbarian. I took occasion to tell him so, for he comported himself after the manner of the head-hunters and hunted of Assam, who are at perpetual feud with one another. You will understand that these foolish stories are introduced in order to cover the fact that this pen cannot describe the glories of the Upper Geyser Basin. The evening I spent under the lee of the Castle Geyser, sitting on a log with some troopers and watching a baronial keep 40 feet high spouting hot water. If the castle went off first, they said the giantess would be quiet, and vice versa, and then they told tales till the moon got up and a party of campers in the woods gave us all something to eat. Then came soft, turfy forest that deadened the wheels, and 2 troopers on detachment duty stole noiselessly behind us. One was the Rap-up-his-tail man, and they talked merrily while the half-broken horses bucked about among the trees. And so a cavalry escort was with us for a mile, till we got to a mighty hill strewn with moss agates, and everybody had to jump out and pant in that thin air. But how intoxicating it was! The old lady from Chicago ducked like an emancipated hen as she scuttled about the road, cramming pieces of rock into her reticule. She sent me 50 yards down the hillside to pick up a piece of broken bottle which she insisted was moss agate. "I some of that at home, and they shine. Yes, you go get it, young man." As we climbed the long path, the road grew viler and viler, till it became, without disguise, the bed of a torrent, and just when things were at their rockiest, we nearly fell into a little sapphire lake, but never sapphire was so blue, called Mary's Lake, and that between 8,000 and 9,000 feet above the sea. Afterward, grass downs, all on a vehement slope, so that the buggy, following the new-made road, ran on the two off wheels mostly, till we dipped head-first into a ford, climbed up a cliff, raced along down, dipped again, and pulled up dishevelled at Larry's for lunch and an hour's rest. Then we lay on the grass and laughed with sheer bliss of being alive. This have I known once in Japan, once on the banks of the Columbia, that time the salmon came in and California howled, and once again in the Yellowstone, by the light of the eyes of the maiden from New Hampshire. 4 little pools lay at my elbow. One was of black water, tepid; one clear water, cold; one clear water, hot; one red water, boiling. My newly washed handkerchief covered them all, and we two marvelled as children marvel. "This evening we shall do the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone," said the maiden. "Together?" said I, and she said yes. The sun was beginning to sink when we heard the roar of falling waters and came to a broad river along whose banks we ran. And then I might at a pinch describe the infernal regions, but not the other place. The Yellowstone River has occasion to run through a gorge about 8 miles long. To get to the bottom of the gorge it takes 2 leaps, one of about 120 and the other 300 feet. I investigated the upper or lesser fall, which is close to the hotel. Up to that time nothing particular happens to the Yellowstone, its banks being only rocky, rather steep, and plentifully adorned with pines. At the falls it comes round a corner, green, solid, ribbed with a little foam, and not more than 30 yards wide. Then it goes over, still green and rather more solid than before. After a minute or two, you, sitting on a rock directly above the drop, begin to understand that something has occurred, that the river has jumped between solid cliff walls, and that the gentle froth of water lapping the sides of the gorge below is really the outcome of great waves. And the river yells aloud, but the cliffs do not allow the yells to escape. That inspection began with curiosity and finished in terror, for it seemed that the whole world was sliding in chrysolite from under my feet. I followed with the others round the corner to arrive at the brink of the canyon. We had to climb up a nearly perpendicular ascent to begin with, for the ground rises more than the river drops. Stately pine woods fringe either lip of the gorge, which is the gorge of the Yellowstone. You'll find all about it in the guide-books. All that I can say is that without warning or preparation I looked into a gulf 1,700 feet deep, with eagles and fish-hawks circling far below, and the sides of that gulf were one wild welter of color, crimson, emerald, cobalt, ochre, amber, honey, splashed with port wine, snow-white, vermilion, lemon, and silver-gray in wide washes. The sides do not fall sheer, but were graven by time and water and air into monstrous heads of kings, dead chiefs, men and women of the old time. So far below that no sound of its strife could reach us, the Yellowstone River ran a finger-wide strip of jade green. The sunlight took those wondrous walls and gave fresh hues to those that nature had already laid there. Evening crept through the pines that shadowed us, but the full glory of the day flamed in that canyon as we went out very cautiously to a jutting piece of rock, blood red, or pink it was that overhung